Here we go. So I guess that we are live now at this new webinar that we are organizing today. Nice to meet you all, guys. I'm Alessandro Cillario, co-founder and co-CEO of Cubbit. And here with me, I have Davide Capozzi, the Innovation Director of WIIT.
Thank you, Alessandro, for inviting me. And I'm really thrilled to have a discussion with you on the further topics.
Very good. And also we have Daniele Baschieri with us. That is one of our senior full stack developer. Ciao, Daniele.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be here to answer some question about the technology.
Very good. Very good. So, well, of course, we have just to wait a couple of minutes to let the people coming in and of course, visiting our webinar from YouTube, from LinkedIn, and in order to discuss today with us about sovereignty and not just about that. Overall, I guess the most interesting part here is about, what is happening basically in Europe in terms of compliance on one hand, and on the other one, for sure, sovereignty. So are two topics that are pretty interesting. We will also address another one during the webinar, which is more related to, the risk management in terms of data management and what we have to do in order to protect a little bit ourselves in a better way in that direction. So that's basically are the topics. But meanwhile, I would say while I start to share some slides, Davide, maybe if you want to give us just a high-level overview about WIIT, because we met you basically in on the field, in the market. You are a very impressive growing company in the cloud industry, especially working a lot all around Europe. So if you want to describe a little bit what you're doing now, it's a good way
Yes,
to start.
of course, Alessandro, thank you for giving me the possibility also to introduce WIIT and what we are doing in Europe. Basically, WIIT is a cloud provider, as simple as that, and has been founded in 2004, so a long time ago. So WIIT started to do cloud before cloud has been invented, if we can say that. And yeah, currently we are a listed company. So we are listed into the Italian stock market. And basically, we have started since 5 years to expand our business model across Europe. Our vision in 3 years is to be one of the more important cloud providers specialized in premium cloud. And I would spend just a couple of words on that. To agree with all of you, what is premium cloud? And basically, so our footprint right now is Italy, of course, where there's the headquarters of the company, Germany, where we have a very good presence. We start acquiring companies 5 years ago, and now the most part of our revenues are in Germany. And a couple of months ago, we have also acquired a company in Switzerland, a very, very interesting market because it's a very protected market. There all the topics about data and sovereignty, what you have just said in your introduction, are in a country scale, because they have, for example, their version of GDPR, their version of the privacy regulation. And for example, in Switzerland, we have all of our clients are mostly banks. And if you want to do cloud services in Switzerland, you need to do that from Switzerland. The data should be in Switzerland, and also the skills and competencies. So people working on the system has to be in Switzerland. So I think it's a really good example also to cope with this topic of data sovereignty. But by the way, why premium cloud and what this differs between us and, for example, an hyperscaler or other cloud provider? So basically, I think the origin of this premium cloud is from the way WIIT is selling their cloud services. Let me just talk a couple of minutes about that, because it's the reason why I joined this company in 2017. Previously, I was in the consulting business, cloud computing. So I had the chance in 2012 to see a very big project of cloud migration in Italy to the hyperscalers. But during that experience, I have also felt the fact that the big companies had some, concerns to put their heart in terms of IT architecture on the cloud, because of trust, because of security, blah blah blah. And WIIT at that time searched me and found me out. And proposed me to join the company as an innovation director, so to build the service portfolio and to expand it. And actually, it is what I do. And the very interesting fact that convinced me to join this company is that they approached the client starting from the heart. So all the clients since 2004 in WIIT has put at the very first place their heart of in terms of IT architecture in WIIT's cloud. Example, the ERPs. So a lot of SAP, for example, in Italy are hosted in WIIT. And for example, the e-commerce of the most famous company are there. And it's a matter of trust, it's a matter of security, but we will talk about it in the webinar. So
it's pretty cool, because by the way, another interesting part is that for sure we both are facing basically, I would say, the same experience. I mean, starting from Italy, and expanding and seeing a market that is a European market that is extremely growing in terms of needs for IT, for cloud services, and also trying to positioning our solutions and our products in order to explain the value to the end customer and explain it by touching exactly the most critical assets, which are of course the data and the way they manage it. So it's pretty interesting. There are some patterns, let's say, that I guess we will also face during the conversation, but it's a good start. So in order to move quick, because of course what we want to do is having a very what we try to always to do in our webinars is to be extremely quick, concrete, discuss about topics pretty in a pretty straight to the point way, giving space to some question at the end. We will immediately start. So Davide, we already present you. I'm Alessandro, and that's the agenda of today. So basically, the first point that I would like to address is about the sovereignty, how it's becoming real, what is happening all around Europe, but not just in Europe. I mean, on our side, we are facing a lot of interest coming from South Asia, for example, from Dubai, from all around the world. Basically, there's a sovereign concern that is raising up. On the other side, of course, the data protection and resiliency. So while we were preparing this webinar, you showed me a good way to approach, I would say, the problem of the data protection in terms of game theory, which is something that, I mean, it brought a Nobel Prize to someone some years ago. And then we have the compliance part, which is, for me, it's extremely critical, because the key element that, in my opinion, every single IT manager should ask to himself is, do I have to just consider the compliance as something like boring, as complex, that I just need to manage, or it can be an opportunity to enforce my IT structure internally, and so to leverage also into the management of my company in order to enforce the data protection and the data resiliency overall. And on the other way, of course, I want to understand a little bit and to present on our side what we are doing with Cubbit into this field, and at the same time what you are doing in terms of the challenges that we face. So I would immediately start with the first topic, which is the sovereignty. So I took some examples here of what is happening around Europe. These are some articles that are coming out, and I guess that it's pretty interesting because, first of all, I would take the first news here this very interesting article. It's about the cloud clash, they call. So there's this Europe division, let's say, separation in terms of how they evaluate the sovereignty of a company and what does it mean and what is happening now. So first of all, maybe starting from a high level, what do you think, I mean, why it's becoming so important, the matter of the sovereignty? I mean, 5 years ago, nobody basically cared about that. But now we are all talking about that, its presence in most of the compliance elements that we have from the European Union. So what do you think on that field?
Yeah, the topic here, I think it's very strategic in a certain way. Doesn't matter about technology. So we are not talking about technology here. So what has been changed since 5 years? You're right. Since 5 years ago, nobody were interested in okay, where is my data? Who is managing that? From where? And it was considered kind of a value to have also a global value chain. But something happened during these 5 years, and everybody, I think, remembers about Corona. And after that, all the geopolitics situation has changed. And we can see, like nowadays, what is happening in terms of war and that we have in Europe. So it seems to be, something that has been changed in terms of what is the world situation in terms of politics, economics right now. And I think that during Corona, for example, the countries have experienced what mean to be isolated. So, for example, during Corona, all of us remember about the shortage of masks. For example, in Italy, we had, I remember some suppliers coming from China that from one day to the other, they said, okay, I'm sorry, I cannot provide the masks to Italy because I need to
to protect my people,
to protect my people, to protect my country, and so on and so forth. And this, we remember that affected also, for example, all the supply chain about, for example, chips and everything related to servers and IT equipment. I remember that at that time, it was really hard also for us, for WIIT, to buy server storage, all the data center equipment, because nobody were selling cross country. But I think this feeling has developed, and what is going on also now, as what is happening in Ukraine, is affecting the way people are thinking about critical assets. And I think that if you allow me to do a jump, the countries start thinking about their critical assets in terms of, for example, power, critical suppliers, whatever, but also data. So data is now considered a really critical asset for each country. In Europe, the GDPR has already started to be a very important guideline since 2016. But what we see right now, and what I'm also hearing from my clients in Italy and in Germany as well, is that companies are more and more interested in keeping their data under control. And basically, I think this is the reason behind the so-called movement data sovereignty. Is a kind of, the opposite movement from globalization. So globalization, where everything is shared, everything is friend of the other one. Now, the uncertainty of the future is putting a bit of pressure on government, on companies. And in that scenario, what happens, but it's not the first time in the history, everybody is looking at, closing a bit more and protecting their asset. And I think this is the very real reason behind this movement.
Yeah, and so basically, just to understand, like when you speak with your customers or your prospects, or do they expect now to, for example, saying, "Oh, I'm a German company. I want to be sure that my processes, my IT processes that are crucial," because of course we all know that if we basically turn off the IT infrastructure of our companies, we are all dead, more or less. We might say it. At the end, this company, like let's say a German company, comes to you and say, like, "I want to be sure that the infrastructure, my IT services and everything else is run, for example, in Germany or in Europe." It's a request that is growing up.
Yes, it's even worse than that. And this surprised me a lot when we started knowing better the German cloud market. In Germany, but you can just look at the statistic. There's much more cloud providers than Italy, for example. Why this happens? Because German companies are not only asking for having a cloud provider, for example, meaning data, competencies, and all the value chain in Germany or in Europe. They prefer to have this cloud provider within their land. And a land in Germany is the equivalent of the Italian regions.
Yeah.
Okay. So the preferred solution for them is to not, in Germany, fine, in Europe, okay, but the preferred solution is to have a cloud provider within their own land, which is, something surprising at least for me. And I think it's a reflection of what we have said before.
Yeah, and by the way, something that, for example, we are seeing also in the UK, we are seeing in France, so other countries. We opened at the end of 2023 our sales activities, and not just that. So it's quite interesting because it seems like a pattern that is moving. And the more, and that's another topic, the more you go to smaller countries like Switzerland you mentioned, but many others, the more they feel even more this pressure of controlling this kind of data, which is interesting. But another topic that I wanted to share with you, which in my opinion is extremely, it demonstrates 100% that this need is coming out, are the new marketing activities, I would say, from Azure or AWS or whatever, because basically they came out knowing that, of course, they cannot provide a sovereign cloud because obviously, and then we will discuss later about the Cloud Act, but basically the core concept of the Cloud Act, which is a American law, says that if you are an American company, the government and all the agencies can have access to the data of every single customer you have all around the world, no matter what. So at the end, if we start from that point of view, it's pretty interesting because it seems that they were kind of, I would say, a little bit scared about the fact that a lot of potential business will come out from them because they are not able to really protect the data of their customers, European customers, for example. And so they came out with these massive marketing activities, maybe also in order to slow down a little bit from a lobbying perspective, I guess, the process itself. So they came out and they started, as you see here, some titles. So AWS is creating a sovereign cloud for Germany. Microsoft is creating a sovereign cloud. And it was funny because I read some stuff like, oh, we guarantee that because the employees of AWS Germany will be German, which, I mean, it doesn't make any sense in terms of real compliance, but it's a way that they are trying to use to push a little bit this kind of position. What do you think? What's the feeling? Do you see that your customers are believing into this kind of things, or what?
Okay, let me say that way. European market is kind of 30% of the total cloud market in the world. So it's something that the hyperscalers, so the big guys, cannot afford to lose. It's something that it's very important. It's very important for them. And basically, I think that is a matter of trust. So Cloud Act, of course, but also, the previous version of Cloud Act that you probably know, it's a fact. It's a fact that if you are a cloud provider in that should obey to the US law, you are forced to, let's say, reveal data of your customers if, as you said, government or other agency is asking to you. And this is something that hyperscalers are trying to mitigate in Europe, for example, with the massive marketing activity, as you said, and also, opening more and more data centers in countries. For example, last year, Azure has opened the first region in Italy. AWS did that a couple of years before, and this is happening all around Europe. But by the way, again, it's a matter of trust. What I feel from for example, I can compare Italian and German market because I know them with a direct experience. In Italy, for example, when I worked in consulting back to 2012, companies were really concerned about the Cloud Act. That was the previous version of Cloud Act and where the data were. They were more interested in technological advancement and so on and so forth. That's why a lot of big Italian companies, but also mid-enterprise to the small to the startup, are using, for example, hyperscaler cloud services. In Germany, I've heard a different story. So German companies, for historical reasons, are more concerned about where to put their system, where to put their data. From cloud perspective, we can say that German companies are a step back compared to the Italian companies. For example, let's talk about, for example, co-location. Co-location is something, the entry level of cloud is, putting your system in someone else's house and then, just have the advantage to have a network
some
connection.
management, connection,
very slight, a very slight layer of services. Many of German companies are still in that situation. So the journey, speaking on an average base in Germany, seems to be a step back because of this lack of trust in cloud companies, in cloud services, and that's why right now, for example, in Germany, it's a very, very interesting moment because we have data sovereignty from one side, which is saying to German companies, hey, you were right to do a bit slower than the others. And now, if you want to, for example, adopt cloud services, now you have some European cloud providers like WIIT or object storage provider like Cubbit that can provide you cloud services within your country, within your land. So I think it would be a very interesting future. So next quarters in Germany, but in Italy as well.
I guess you're right, and especially I think that if you see it from a high level perspective, the reason why we are talking about sovereignty is because we want to get some control on a key asset like data. And of course, the control that you want to have is not just when things are good, are right, everything is working well, but especially when things went in a wrong way, let's say. So what you want to avoid is to have this kind of access or risks in a bad situation, which of course we hope will not happen. So it's, if you want to avoid it, of course, you need to craft an IT strategy for your company that helps you in order to guarantee the sovereignty, even in the very bad situation. Because sometimes I had some discussions like, yeah, the Cloud Act, but why? I mean, the US should access to my data. It doesn't make any sense. I said, yes, but it's not point of if it makes sense or not in a, let's say, peacetime, I would say, but it's more like about the wartime, which doesn't mean actually a war in terms of weapons, actually, but more like a situation where maybe the scenario will be a little bit different, even in the competition, in the business, and not on a defense level. But this is connected to the level of risk, so it's the second topic that I wanted to raise, which is this one. So the impact of the security part. Which is another step of what we are facing now. One of the key elements that all the companies are seeing. In Italy, it's massive. In Germany, it's extremely significant, as well as in the rest of Europe. So the cybersecurity incidents. Cybersecurity is booming. I had many meetings, with venture capitalists that are investing billions into the cybersecurity because they know that this is a market that will grow super fast due to the needs. And these are some data coming from it. So 75% of IT organization that will be affected by at least one ransomware attack by 2025. This is it's a scenario that is predicted by the Cyber Defense magazine. And then we have more or less an impact that is around 22 days for a ransomware attack, which means that, of course, yes, you can start by retrieving a little bit and restructure a little bit the business before, for sure. But still, the full impact, if you don't protect you, is about 22 days. And then you have an average cost of the data breach. Actually, you present even more numbers on this later. And of course, if you get attacked, we see from data that 71% of the victims are not able to really recover the data that were attacked. So that's the scenario, let's say the landscape that basically we have in front of us. And of course, there's this combination between the information security part and the protection of the data for the corporate overall. And the interesting part here is that the CIOs, the IT manager, were always considered like the guys that needed to let the company run on the IT part, and now it's asked to them as well as to the CISO to basically switch a little bit the approach and be more proactive, I would say, in protecting their infrastructure. So, starting from that, you shared with me some slides. Tell me about what's your feeling of what you detected on that.
Yes, and also about the numbers. The numbers about cybersecurity are always a bit underestimate, I think, because companies are a bit, not so in an easy situation to say, okay, I've been attacked. Okay, and this happens a lot, for example, in Italy, in Germany as well, but in Europe. And yes,
you say that most of the time they do not declare even that they were attacked. Yeah.
Yes. So all the statistics about that, in my opinion, are underestimated. But what my numbers here and that I would like to discuss with you are about the IT outages in general. This is a survey that Uptime Institute, which is one of the most important company coping with resilience of data center, is publishing all the year. So on an annual base, on a yearly base, they are able to update these statistics. And the questions are really simple. And the sample of the company in this case is 750 about all sizes. So it's a quite wide sample of companies, and I think it's a really interesting outcome that they have. The questions are really simple. Have you been experienced an IT outage in the last 3 years? And the answer is in the 60% of the cases is yes. So 60% of the company has experienced an IT outage that, when happens, can be on a different scale of severity. It could be severe, serious, significant, minimal, or negligible. But consider that 1/3. So severe, serious, and significant, so summing up these three cases, is 1/3 of the total of answers, means that a company in one time out of three has had kind of bad consequences in terms of lack of revenues, lack of reputation, or some compliance issue, which is huge. And consider that another fact: in 30% of the cases, the outages are not resolved within 24 hours, which is a huge amount of time. You have showed a similar statistic about ransomware, and consider that not being able to act as a company, so not being able to collect the revenues for a couple of days or more, in some cases can be really a doom for a company. So some companies are closing after that. So it's a really serious situation.
And by the way, I think that this will also expand. Let's take the AI part of it. Okay, so let's take how easy it is now to create a really smart email, to try to hack a client of one of our employees, for example. This is something that, 2 years ago were impossible. So probably we are not even seeing now the effects of this. We will probably see in the next statistics, but this is something that will come. We faced it also for Cubbit. We saw many companies started having these attacks. The first part were starting from some kind of tricks in order to get some money from the financial area of the company. So like very well-designed email or even voice messages or even calls by saying like, oh, send me this money here, but it might be the same consider for, the data, which are basically the main assets of a company. So pretty interesting. But moving forward, that's another part that for me, it's extremely interesting. So what are the real root causes of this? And it's quite interesting.
This is, let me say, the why WIIT exists. So 90% of the outages that we mentioned before are related to just three main causes. So we are saying that the outages of IT can be connected to hardware/DC outage in more than 50% of the cases, human error in 30% of the cases, and let me say just 11% about cyber attacks. This is a percentage that, of course, is growing. And the last part mentioned by Adder, which is less than 10%, basically is related to third-party disruption. Consider to have a supplier that can have these causes again of outage, and their fault will be reflected in your fault if this supplier is part of your supply chain, your core supply chain. But by the way, this is, I mentioned before, the why WIIT exists, and we are strongly convinced that we are fighting. So our services helps our clients to fight against this probability. As I mentioned before, we are a cloud providers, and our payoff is premium cloud because we are investing a lot in technologies. So we are investing a lot in the cutting edge technologies in terms of IT equipment, data centers. We have the highest certification for data centers, for example, in order to let our clients to cope with this 53% of causes of outage. Human error, another really important cause that we fight against using processes. If you have a standardized process, you can be more resilient of human error. So if you have a very precise and standardized processes, the human so that the human cause, the human failure can be reduced, not to zero, but you can reduce them a lot. And cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, as you mentioned before, is kind of a plague here in this moment for a lot of companies, and that's why, and we will see in a while, we have merged together cybersecurity and cloud computing, even in our very basic portfolio. So we are very convinced that cybersecurity and cloud computing is something that should be proposed together and is a basic ingredient to increase the trust of our clients to adopt this kind of services.
Yeah, and in terms of the impact, so of course, when you talk about outages here, basically you say like there's the corporate impact, on the turnover, on the EBITDA, the impact that it has on that side. Then you have the criticity of the processes, so all the elements of the RTO, RPO, etc. And then you have the impact for the IT capex and opex. So just to move, because I want then to focus on this game theory, which was something that excited me. What's your the real impact that you see for customers that are impacted by this kind of outages? What do you see or you envision on your side?
Yeah, let me summarize it with just a sentence, which was the title of a couple of previous slides. So IT outages eat business for breakfast. So when an IT outage happened, all the business strategy, whatever, are completely broken, because the most of the processes of our clients, of the companies, even our processes are leveraging IT. But when you have to quantify how much costs an IT outage, is not just about technology. Of course, technology in terms of IT capex and opex is important, but if you want to quantify what's the damage for a company about after an IT outage, you should look at other dimensions which are not related to IT, but are more related to business. So you should look at the corporate balance sheet. So how much the revenues, the annual EBITDA, and how much are the processes interrupt critical for the company. Think about, for example, to an e-commerce. A lot of our clients has an e-commerce, and which is a part of revenues, is a revenue stream for a lot of them. Imagine that e-commerce goes down for a week. It's really easy to think about the cost of that disruption. You should take the revenues, the daily revenues of the e-commerce, multiply by 7, and you have an idea about what could be a damage. And consider that this model that we'll see in the following slide are not taking into consideration the reputational damage, because the reputational damage, it's very, very easy to be quantified, but it is something which is related to all of this.
Yeah, and so let's go on this. So the part that is fascinating me here, and so I will steal this slide and I will use it maybe also for our customers, but the point is it's extremely simple. So there's the game theory. We all know, the Nobel Prize that was won on this. The core concept of it is how you balance, what's the best option that you have to balance, considering like a matrix of options in order to maximize, the result. And so if you want to explain it, I guess that it's the best way to demonstrate why investing in this part is not like just a cost, is like a real investment for for the company. And so why an IT manager should also present it as an investment for the company and not just like something that, I mean, it will take some margins out.
Yeah, as you mentioned before, a lot of IT managers can say, okay, for example, I don't care about Cloud Act. It will never happen that the United States will look at my data. And a lot of IT managers also say, hey, I don't need, for example, a disaster recovery. I don't need a third copy of my data. I don't need an object lock on my data, just because it will never happen that,
or maybe even sometimes I hear something like, oh, it's a third copy, so I need it. It's even if it's really cheap, even if I lose it and then I replace, I mean, who cares?
Yeah,
that something pretty typical. Yeah.
But as you know, no. So let me be a bit rude on that. Shit happens, and when it happens, it could cost a lot. So that's why I tried to modelize it using a payoff matrix. The payoff matrix, as you mentioned before, is something related to game theory and allows us to compare different scenarios considering the outcome of an event. In this case, I am comparing the same company in two different scenarios. The first scenario is the not resilient technology. So the company that is, for example, buying cloud services without, for example, resilience in terms of disaster recovery, third copy, whatever. Yeah. The technology scenario is the same company that has bought on top of the regular cloud also some resilient technology like disaster recovery, some more cybersecurity, a third copy, object lock, whatever. As you can see, comparing, for example, in looking at the event rows. So the first row is about a catastrophic event would not happen in the next 5 years. And the second row is considering that at least once this catastrophic event will happen. And if we consider, for example, the first line is the typical, let's say, dumb IT manager who is thinking about, okay, it will never happen to me. So in this case, you are comparing 1,600,000 total cost of ownership with 1,700,000. So you do not have a lot of difference between them, but an IT manager who is not considering the worst case will choose for sure to pay 1,600,000 because of it's cheaper and I will have.
I save 100K, so who cares? My boss will be happy, and yeah.
Yes, several reasons. But if you consider the scenarios, the event of having a catastrophic event, the things change a lot, because in the case of not resilient scenario and the presence of a catastrophic event, the cost of all of that will raise to 6.5 million. How I calculate this? Using the previous model. So I use the balance sheet of the sample company that I cannot reveal, of course, for privacy reasons. But trust me, these our data is not just on-desk experiment. It's made on a client of us, and I took their balance sheet. I imagined what could happen after a disaster, and the consequences in terms of cost are really realistic to be 6.5 million. The cost of in the resilient scenario with the catastrophic event will be a bit more than 1.7 million. So we are talking about 1.8. Why? Because in that case, you have to, for example, activate some services that when a catastrophic event is not happening are just idle. Okay, but
yeah, of course,
you will have 1.8 million. Now, where you apply the game theory, there's the simplest algorithms from game theory, which is named minimax, and the objective is to minimize, so pick the scenario that minimize the maximum loss. And in this case, it's really easy to choose between the two scenarios, because if you apply this algorithm, the one chosen will be for sure the resilient technology, because it minimizes the maximum loss, which in this case is 1.8 million. In the other case, it's 6.5.
Yeah, and so if everything goes well, basically you will have like 1.7 million, and if everything goes wrong, you will have 1.8 million, and that's basically the core element, I would say, of it. And of course, here we have a call from Daniel, I guess, that is saying, taking into account that the small and medium enterprises are the future target for cyber attacks, being part of a chain, how do you adapt your services to the needs of small and medium-sized companies? So it's, do you have like this kind of offering, let's say, for medium-sized companies? Yeah,
I can take this. And let me say, Daniel, I would say it's not the future target. They are actually the target. So I'm sorry to say that, but it's real. As Alessandro said before, the entrance barrier for attacks is lower and lower down, because a lot of, for example, attackers are using AI to automatize all these kind of attacks, and doing this kind of attacks also to small targets is a reality. And also attacking the small medium enterprise is profitable for attackers, because they can do attacks in a large scale, so they can collect ransom from a very small amount of money from a lot of small and medium enterprise, and the business case is profitable for them. So what we do for small and medium enterprises, since 5 years ago, we have started a go-to-market of our services, which is dedicated to small and medium enterprises. We do this through partners. So we have standardized our portfolio of cloud computing and cybersecurity, and now you can buy WIIT technology even in very small packages. So don't worry, we can help, and for sure, for example, also, it's something that if you want, we can talk about it. So, but
on my side, it's more or less the same. So of course, we are seeing customers that are from small, medium businesses. Actually, we started from them because it was even easier, when we started the company and growing, to approach them, to explain the value, because the decision-making process is it's easier. So it's absolutely something that we can discuss on. And the other part, and the last one of these slides, is about your kind of paradigm of it, which is interesting for me in terms of how you're approaching, because it's really connected also with then our technology and how we think about how to store the data of our customers. So you are actually acting in 7 different regions, and so what's more or less the strategy over there that you decided to follow?
Yeah. So really, in brief, just to also, give also the possibility to look at the demo within the time that we have targeted for today. This is our footprint, and this is the foundation of all the services that we provide to our customers. As you can see, you don't see data centers here, even if we have more than 20 data centers spread across Europe. We have decided to collect them within 7 regions, 4 in Germany, 2 in Italy, and now 1 in Switzerland. So a region is a collection of 1 or more data centers. And connected all together, so the client can design the scenario they want. So sky is the limit. In this case, if they want to build a cloud service within Italy and have a disaster recovery in Germany or whatever, they can. We have several customers that, for example, they have high availability between two regions in Italy, and then a disaster recovery in Germany, and also the other way around. So it's a very flexible footprint that will allow our clients to do this. What is the main feature? I do not want to go into details of all the feature, but let me say just this. Why it is named Secure Cloud? Because, as I mentioned before, we are strictly convinced that cloud and cybersecurity should go together, and that's why within the regions you can activate the zones. Zones are a bunch of functionalities which can be standard or premium, but both standard and premium, they have, for example, the security by design, which is something that we think it is a must to have. So even if you are activating standard services within a region in WIIT, you will have by design a very good level of security. You will have a very good level of high availability of the technology. So all the technology we are proposing are not, are able to face a first hardware fail. So we are not talking about single servers, single storage. Everything is on a high availability in terms of hardware and scalability. So whatever region you choose, you will be able to scale whatever you want. What is the difference between standard and premium zones? In the premium zones, you can have access to a premium portfolio of cybersecurity, considering all the technology, for example, to be proactive and during attacks, for example. And you will be also available to have tier 4 data centers for very critical workloads. There's also the DR zones. The DR zones are functionality about disaster recovery, so the possibility for clients to activate disaster recovery functionalities, both in terms of computational power and in terms of data. And that's why we also provide a secure backup, service for them. Let me say, this is the foundation of all the services we are also building on top of that. So
which is basically your role, after all. So you can afford and guarantee that you're doing it. But it's pretty impressive in terms of also the distribution that you're facing, so that the customer can also manage different scenarios according to his needs, from sovereignty perspective, data resiliency perspective, etc. So it's quite interesting on that. And there are a couple of questions more from Daniel that maybe you might ask also. You might answer also in the chat directly, just to move forward on it. But of course, if there are other questions, we will take at the end of the webinar in the Q&A. The last point is about compliance, before just having also a quick overview about how we approach it in terms of Cubbit modeling of our solutions for these needs. So we have the NiS2. Of course, this is something that is extremely important. It's coming out. 2024 is the year, let's say, in which this will be transposed into every single European country. And there's not just the NiS2. There's also, the DORA, regulation that is coming for the financial services. You mentioned the banks that you're working with, so it's pretty massive. We put here some data, some industries that are touched by this kind of regulations. So we do not have much time to discuss about the details of it, unfortunately, but maybe we'll take another slot for another webinar. But the interesting part that I wanted to approach here, and are a couple of questions that are in my mind every single time, of course, I meet some customers. First of all, these companies are ready or not for these new regulations. That's a point. And how can we support them? So how long, of course, it takes, what we have to do, basically. On the other side, this is a problem or is an opportunity for these companies? Because in my way of thinking, maybe because I studied law, I don't know, but in my way of thinking, that's an opportunity that we can basically leverage on. But tell me also your thoughts about that, and maybe we will have also another slot to discuss about it.
Yes, of course. NIS2 is it's a huge, regulation about Europe, and 17th of October will be executive within all the Europe. So
yeah.
Starting from 17th of October 2024, I'm talking about this year.
Time is running. Time is running out.
Time is running. So all of this will be in execution mode. What does it mean? It means that as a company, if you are in a critical sector or in the sector covered by NIS2, you have to be compliant. Otherwise, there will be an auditor structure at a European level, and also declined in all the countries. That can ask you, okay, show me what is your compliance, and it will be also able to provide some fines that are not small at all in that case. So this is just, it is something real. It is not just, something about Europe. They are doing regulation, whatever. This is very, material fact. I think it's a good thing because will force a lot of companies to raise a lot the bar in terms of cybersecurity and data protection. There's 10 chapters, so 10 things that they need to cope with. I agree with all of those in the chat that have seen we are not ready. So a lot of companies of our clients are not ready, and that's why as WIIT we have developed an audit, let me say a pre-audit service that we can provide to our customers of prospect in order to let them know if they are compliant or not with NIS2. And we are also able to provide what are the services they need to buy in order to be compliant. So the good news is that for those companies who are already compliant with ISO 27000, it would be a very small gap. So if you have already got the 27000 ISO, so 001, 17 or 18, whatever, you are, 80% compliant with NIS2.
Yeah.
But if you don't, it would be a journey. But I see it in a positive way. So is an increase in level. So it is a stimulus for them to raise the bar in terms of cybersecurity and data protection. I think it's a good thing, by the way.
Yeah, and maybe also getting more budget, for the IT spending overall, which is part of the challenge that we always have on the IT part, in order to avoid to say like, oh no, we have to cut the budget here. Actually, we can also leverage sometimes into this compliance, to push a little bit, on the board of the company, on the CEO, in order to analyze also this part. According to that, it's interesting for me just to quickly focus on how we manage these three challenges in terms of compliance, in terms of sovereignty, and data resiliency and security. So I just have a few slides to demonstrate it a little bit, but I will go pretty fast because I want to leave the last parts to Daniele to present a little bit our demo of the product and to make it concrete, let's say. So, of course, about Cubbit, just to give an overview for someone who doesn't know us pretty well, that's more or less our numbers. We have several very important customers from Italy. The most important one probably is Leonardo, so a very big company, 14 billions in the defense industry, but many others. In any case, we grew a lot. We born in 2016, and now we are expanding a lot also out of Italy. We started in 2023. But the core concept, so except from the customers overall, it's that we want to really give a new way to store the data in a more resilient way. And what we built since 2016, it's a kind of deep technology. So we are considered this like in the top 30 deep tech companies in Europe right now from the European Commission. But the reason is because we developed this deep technology, which is related to the geo-distribution of the data. So basically for Cubbit, it means that when you store the data in our infrastructure, thanks to our product, basically what you have is that your file is encrypted, splitted. There's a layer of redundancy that is applied according to your needs. And then you have this geo-distribution. So the cool part of it is that actually you can decide what kind of geo-distribution do you want to have. So according to your internal policies, your needs, your compliance that you need to guarantee to the company, you can actually select exactly the level of resiliency that you want to have to your data. And so you have the full range of it that potentially is usable. And so how does it work, Cubbit, overall, just to give a concept of it? So you can imagine it as a software as a service solution to use an object storage. So, of course, we are in the object storage field. We are S3 compatible, so the real standard in the market. But the idea is that you can connect your node to the Cubbit network in order to create your own distributed network. So we are not talking about, oh, we store your data distributed all over and you have no idea where to store it. It's exactly the opposite. You can decide exactly where to store those data. So you can decide to do it on the public cloud, on the data centers, at the edge, whatever you prefer in terms of the usage of it. And that's extremely important, of course, for the topic that we addressed before, because, of course, it means that according to your real need, you can decide where to store the data. You are more on the sovereignty area and you want to store in the land in Germany that we were mentioning before, you can do it, as well as you can do storage in another place. And that means, for example, talking about WIIT, that yes, you can decide to say, oh, we have these 4 regions in Germany and we want to distribute the data in order to reduce the risk in 4 different regions in Germany for WIIT. Yes, of course, it's something that you can do. So in order to guarantee a higher level of resiliency for the storage, which is it's the boring part, I would say, because storage is always like we need to, consider the data gravity, the complexity of management of the storage, but at the same time is the most important one, because if you lose the data, you lose everything, basically. So that's basically the model that we use. You can connect the nodes where you want, and then your data are split, encrypted, and distributed all over these nodes. So according to that, what are the combination of the needs that we were talking before, the new trends that are coming, and our solution? Of course, what we can provide is sovereignty, because as I mentioned before, you can select, you can say, oh, I want to store my data just in Italy, or just in Germany, or just in Switzerland, or in a combination of these. It depends from, of course, the needs that I have from a sovereignty perspective. I have the hyper-resiliency part, which means that even in a scenario, like in a very critical scenario in which you have these outages in a significant way, so you lose maybe, 1 data center for an outage or something like that, or maybe even 2, you can protect your data and so select your resiliency due to this geo-distribution that you have, because you can always select the policies of redundancy, and so you can select how many nodes, how many data centers you want to lose before losing the access of the data. So you can balance this part. And of course, there's the ransomware protection part, which is even enforcing it. So on 2 levels. The first one is the object locking and the versioning. So basically we can, and we will see with Daniele, we can lock the writing of the data in order to avoid that backups get wasted by a ransomware. But on the same time, you can provide also value for the infrastructure itself. So, of course, we want to do is to enforce even more the value proposition of companies like WIIT in saying, oh, once you store the data into my infrastructure and data center, even if maybe a piece of my infrastructure, of course, finger crossed, it will never happen. But if it happens, still I have the access to all the other elements, and so I can retrieve the data at all. And that's an asset that we see. Then there's, of course, the cost reduction, a significant impact because we are extremely competitive in terms of costs. We can enable a lot of use cases for hybrid multi-cloud, which is way more requested now. It's another topic and trend that maybe we can discuss in the future. And these are some critical elements. Then there's the sustainability part of it. So this kind of flexibility gives you an answer according to the three needs that we mentioned before, from a sovereignty perspective, as I mentioned, from a data recovery and resiliency, because you can select actually your resiliency and you have this protection, double protection on the ransomware side. And in terms of compliance, what these new regulations are asking to the companies is to enforce their standards of resiliency. And so that's the approach and the way we are envisioning it. Of course, we have then the certifications, we have the GDPR part, the ISO 27K, as we mentioned, and many other values that we will discuss for sure in other webinars. But the key elements that I wanted to raise is that all these trends that are coming out are really connected also with our values in terms of companies and how we are trying to promote this to our customers. As I mentioned, the compatibility is 100% with AWS S3 in terms of solution, which means, and this is exactly the reason why now we're going to show this demo, that you can connect our solution with all the storage that you were using before, and especially you can connect it with all the applications that you have on top of it. So S3 compatible means that all the use cases that you can imagine for storage, from backup, from active archiving, from log management, gateways from the NAS, Kubernetes storage, the cloud migration if you need it, the collaboration, whatever, every single use case can be connected directly to our S3 APIs into our software and solution, and then you as a customer can decide to deploy it. So my expectation and my will, of course, is that maybe also coming from this webinar, we will have some potential customers that will come out and will say like, oh, maybe it's interesting to consider, for example, a deployment of this distributed solution in Germany into the WIIT data centers in order to enforce the resiliency and enforce all these elements on top of it. That's for sure something that I think would be interesting to see in the coming weeks. And starting from that, we just wanted to close before the final Q&A with Daniel that is pretty active in asking questions. So at the end, we will also answer those. But in order to not go too far, I want to address a little bit the topic of the demo. So I invite Daniele to join us. And I will ask him to show a little bit as, a short demo about what we are providing as a product.
Exactly. I will be really fast. I will try to cover all the aspects of our product, from deployment of a swarm, the architecture that Alessandro was pointing out before, about the fact that you can deploy nodes, agents in various regions, and they collaborate to create a distributed network where your data get encrypted and distributed. So no data center is essential. You can always retrieve your data from other data center, rebuild them, and be able to provide a service that is very resilient, more resilient than ever, obviously. I think we can deep dive because I have plenty of time to explain everything. Obviously, I will be faster due to time constraint, but let's start from the swarm. The swarm is the distributed data center that we are talking before. I pick a name like a solid swarm, and I write down also a description to remember these specific infrastructure. After you have created a swarm, you can see that the storage connected is 0 bytes. So we need to connect more nodes in order to create something capable of receiving our data. As you can see, we have a provider section, or the people who maintain the swarm, and we have a button to create bulks of node. Today, we just create 3 nodes, so it's easy to do manually. We pick the name of the node. I prefer to call them related to the regions, so German 0. Creating a node is a very fast process. You just have a Docker that you can use to run the system. Now I'm copying just the secrets, and I will run it from a Docker Compose to simplify the flow. As you can see, now we offer you the possibility to run your nodes in Docker, but in the future, we plan to introduce the possibility to run them through Ansible. So you just have to run your Ansible, and everything in your infrastructure will be deployed as you expect. So it will be also even easier to deploy your infrastructure in a very, very distributed ecosystem, like, for example, the WIIT data center or wherever you want. As you can see, I have put all the secrets from the 3 nodes that I've just created. If we go back to the node section, you will be able to see that I have all the nodes not yet started, so they are in a gray state. And then we run Docker app that, for who knows how Docker works, let the system start and running. They became black because they announced themselves, and then they became green. So they are up and running, ready to receive data from our tenant, from our projects. A tenant is like a collection of projects, and a project is like a company that needs to back up their data. Creating a tenant is a very simple process, and once you have created a tenant, I have already created one, so you don't have to follow the steps. Creating a tenant and connecting from the tenant settings storage section to a swarm. So today I've connected to NGC just to display you how does this work, but in reality, the swarm I just created, I can connect it to a tenant and be ready to upload data directly to the swarm. Once you have your tenant, you have also a project section where you can download information about the usage of every project. Imagine every project to be like a company. And so you can also use it to build your customers or have an overview on the usage of the system. You can also freeze on the top right the project, or ban the project, or delete the project. Let's deep dive into the project and speak about object locking. Obviously, it's important. This is the console, so the final user environment where your customer can create their own buckets, create the users, and collaborate, defining some policy to define specific policy for accessing your data. It's very important that in the console, we also can create API keys to connect third-party application, like, for example, Veeam, Backup, or whatever you want to use to back up your data. In the bucket section, that bucket in the S3 formalism is like a huge folder that contains data. The bucket, you can create bucket with both versioning and object locking. The bucket have unique name inside the tenant, so we need to pick a specific name that do not collide because they are like DNS, so they must be unique. We pick a name that is meaningful, and since we are testing object locking, it's important to call it. If we enable object locking, as you can see, also versioning get enabled, because locking is always alongside versioning. This is important, we will see later why. When you configure object locking, you have to decide whether you want that the application decide the number of days of lock that the object get uploaded. Is like a temporary safe. You decide when it gets opened next. So, for example, if we decide to put the number of days, you can enable retention and pick a number of days, like 5, for example. So every item that get uploaded inside this bucket receive automatically 5 days of object locking. If you disable the retention, is the client that decide how many days. For example, Veeam prefer to be able to decide for every object how many days to attach to it. But for our scenario, we put the retention enabled so we can perform this demo easily. Then we can create the bucket. And so all the data we will upload to this bucket will be locked for 5 days. Let's open the bucket. As you can see, it has enabled both versioning and object locking. I can just upload one of the files that I have on my hard drive by drag and drop is the easiest way to upload something. As you can see, the file has some lock. You can see from this view the number of days of lock he has. In compliance mode is very important, because compliance mode means nobody can change the number of days of lock. Governance mode, admin can change it. As you can see, I can delete the file. This seems misleading because the object is locked, nobody can change it. And is it true, actually? Because in the version, the object is maintained. And even if you try to open the version display, you can retrieve the object by making him the current version. You can also try to delete the object to a specific version. This operation is permanent. But since we have locked this object for up to 5 days, we do not have the permission to operate over this file, neither us that we are root of this account. So an attacker that may steal our account cannot delete this file, no matter what. So it's very important to understand that a backup performed with object locking is very secure. And since Cubbit distributes your data across different facilities, it's easy to retrieve your data, whatever happens to your system, to your accounts, to your credential. Obviously, we always advise you to enable multi-factor authentication on your profile, but obviously all the best practice that everyone should use when performing secure backup. I think I have spoken enough. Obviously, we can deep dive better in a 101, so feel free to book something like this in the future. I think we should let Alessandro and Davide on stage to finalize and answer some questions about the technology.
Thank you, Daniele. So just to resume this, in order to clarify, the interesting part is, of course, it was a quick demo just to show that, yes, you can connect your nodes where you want. So taking the example of WIIT, of course, is like I can select some nodes into the WIIT data centers in order to deploy a distributed network with them. And on the other side, I can connect this distributed network through one or more, like one tenant, so one customer to one distributed network, but even more customers with just one. So I have all the granularity and the flexibility in order to manage the customers, and then each customer can own his own project and so forth. So it means that basically you have the full flexibility of it. Of course, it depends from the kind of customer that you have, because if you are let's say a partner, a reseller that wants to use the solution and then to resell it to his end customers, of course you can manage 100% of the console and having 100% of the assets for you in order to simplify your job on the other hand. While if you are an end customer, of course, what you want to have is to be sure that the data will be stored in a secure way thanks to the resiliency that you apply, and then that you can manage the object storage. So you have both the options in terms of complexity, because it was also a question that came out from some of our followers now. So just in order to conclude this, if there are some questions, and I guess that we collected some of them, so I'm gonna answer to those and to ask also if some questions are for Davide. So of course, yes, Daniel, as I mentioned, this solution can be offered in the two ways. So for a partner that wants to resell the solution, or on the other hand, just for an end customer that wants to use it. It depends from the kind of need that you have in terms of storage. It's extremely important to really define the good infrastructure to do so. And so, of course, this is also an opportunity of collaboration that we have with WIIT. On the other hand, the question of possibility to rewatch it's absolutely yes. And yes, the customer will have an access to the full platform if he wants. So it depends from as I mentioned before, the level of complexity that he wants to manage. We have all the several different options, let's say, that can be considered. So yeah, that's more or less was on our side in order to approach the sovereignty part. You can deploy the nodes. On the compliance, you have the control and the resiliency, and on the risk management also, thanks to the object locking and this geo distribution that helps you in terms of protection from ransomware. That's the key elements that are connected. Davide, I don't know if you enjoyed as well as I did this conversation, and I don't know if you have final feedbacks. What do you think? I think it was a great discussion to approach these topics.
It was, Alessandro, and I really thank you all, guys. I really enjoyed the conversation, and also a lot of questions that we weren't able to answer that, but we will do an offline. And let me say that I really like your technology. I think I can find several contact points with what we do. In terms of premium cloud and resilience, whatever. So yes, I think that together we can help a lot of companies to cope with, for example, NiS2 27K. So we can be helpful. Just
If there's an interest, of course, we left here a QR code just to book a call if someone is interested in. And I would say, and so we have also a link to book the call. I would say that we have a slide just to present the upcoming events, because we're going to have other webinars like this. One will be in French, so French language, because of course we are working also in France, and so it will be related to the sovereignty concerns with the side, let's say, the slice of the France environment, which is a little bit different, because they are even more concerned about their own sovereignty, because we know exactly their kind of approach on this kind of topics. So it will be with Cloud Reso, an MSP partner that we have in France. And then another one will be on July 4th with Hyperius in order to analyze more like the problem of the cloud costs. I guess it was I think it was a great conversation. Thank you, David, again for being here, and thank you to WIIT to participate into this webinar. Thank you, Daniele, for the demo, and speak soon.